Hello, this is Matt. That was my new intro, and you are watching Mental Model Monday number 9. You may have heard this quote before. Problems cannot be solved at the same level they were created. That was supposedly said by Albert Einstein, although the actual quote was a bit different. Now, that's a really powerful idea. Problems cannot be solved at the same level they were created. And as I've come to understand this idea more, I've more thought of it as problems cannot be solved from the same place that they were created. Because if you were at a place from which they could be solved, you would have already solved them. So there is an idea or an algorithm here that you can use, which actually gets you into a different place, allows you to solve them, and make sure that this applies to your original problem. And this comes from TRIZ, which is a group of engineers who have studied really inventive engineers and figured out how they do what they do. And the basic idea from TRIZ is this. You start with a specific problem. You figure out a different conceptual level at which to understand that problem. Then you find a conceptual solution that can solve that has solved that concept before. And finally, you apply that to the specific solution. So the TRIZ idea is specific problem, conceptual solution, check back and apply specific solution. But you can use the same principle from many different positions, not just from the conceptual position, changing the conceptual position, but changing all sorts of different positions to understand creative problem solving and the key to creative problem solving in a whole new way. So the basic idea is you start with a problem. You have a new understanding of that problem. You have a solution based on that new understanding, and then you check to make sure it fits with the original problem. So, if you ever heard of the outside view versus the inside view, this is one way to do this. You are viewing your problem from the inside. What if you took a step back to a different perceptual position, viewed the overall problem? From there, you can see a solution that you might not have seen from inside the problem, and then put yourself back inside the problem and apply that solution. The idea of thinking in time and scale is another position from which you can view this problem. So you can zoom in to the problem and look at little bitty parts of it. You can zoom out and look at the whole thing or even bigger problems surrounding it. You can fast forward and look at after the problem, way after the problem, and you can rewind and look at way before the problem. And again, by viewing this way, you can view a solution, come back to your original position, and apply that solution. The metaphors of movement that I went over, metaphoric problem solving is another way to do this. You start out with a metaphor. You start out with a problem. You come up with a metaphor for that problem. You come up with a metaphoric solution, and you apply it back to your original problem and see if that still fits. So some examples here. Einstein, when he was trying to figure out some issues with time and space and light and how they were all related, he kept thinking about, okay, I'm looking at this light and it's going through space, and okay, that's one way to look at it. What if I put myself inside the problem and I was the light beam? How would everything else look to me? How would time and space look to me as the light beam itself? And by changing from that outside view to that inside view, Einstein was able to come up with relativity. He was able to apply that relativity to Newtonian motion, or find the ways in which the Newtonian paradigm didn't work. So he started with the problem of the Newtonian paradigm. He gave himself the inside view. He came up with relativity, and he was able to apply that and see how that poked holes in some of Newtonian ideas. Richard Dawkins, with the selfish gene, used a metaphoric problem-solving method. He had this problem of, why do we have this cooperative behavior? All these behaviors that didn't seem to make sense to him from this idea of the organism surviving the most. So he used both the metaphor and he zoomed in. So he said, what if instead of just looking at the person as a whole, we zoomed in on their genes? And then what if we use the metaphor of the genes having agency? So now he's looking at a new way to do it. And suddenly, he comes up with a solution. If that's the case, then the genes will be selfish and they will try to self-propagate. And this solves, this lets you see a lot of the reasons why things that don't seem to make sense in evolution make sense. And he applies it to his original problem. So now we see the genes themselves are propagating, and this is why, for instance, we have cooperative behavior when you wouldn't expect it. You can also move laterally. Here's another way to do it. So rather than saying, I'm going to move up a level, down a level, in, out, I'm just going to move sideways. So rather than thinking about the problem as me, let me think about it as a pirate. This is called lateral thinking. How would the President of the United States think about this? I'm just moving from side to side. The problem stays here, and I get a new angle on the problem. Another way to do lateral thinking is just start with a random word like lamppost. What does lamppost make me think of? It makes me think of illuminating. It makes me think of roads. It makes me think of staying by the side of the road, turning on and off when needed. And how do these apply to my problems? So I'm coming at it from a new angle. I'm figuring out, is there any solution that comes out of thinking about it from this new angle? And then I apply that back to the original problem. So I think using this metaphor of the problem as a space in the center, you can zoom in, you can zoom out, you can move around it, you can move sideways, you can go up and down levels of abstraction, you can fast forward and rewind to view the problems at different points in time. If you start viewing your problems in this way, and you use that prism to then come up with a solution from this new viewpoint and apply it to the original problem, you're going to start coming up with way more creative solutions in your life, in your business, in the systems that you're trying to create. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you next time.